Great, this is anytime. Check out the bracelet.
Oh, cool.
It's so cool.
Well, I guess we won't keep people waiting any longer then. Did you have enough time to eat? We can stall for a little longer if you want. More importantly, have you had enough to drink? All right, good.
And safety.
We like to wait till everybody's calmed down before we show up to events like this with people like you. So, as you know, this morning I was in Washington, D.C. I had to do one more check-in with my probation officer. And then on the way here, we had a little blowout. Whoa, hey, Adam versus the man on the screen. I know I heard something from there. Anyway, hey, how about that? That was easy. So on the way here, we also had a little blowout on our trailer. And it's been an amazing experience the last 10 months living with my fiance. We just got engaged a couple weeks ago. Yeah, so if you're ever giving a speech and you want like a really easy applause line, now you know, right? I can't wait to be able to say, oh, we just got married, and then everybody says, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Depending on what response you're going for, sympathy is very underrated. But on the way here, we had a blowout on the trailer, and it punched a hole through the wheel well, and just our luck with things like that. But I really appreciate your patience, and it's great to see that people who care about this have nothing better to do on a weekday evening. I mean, you're looking for a good excuse to hang out at a bar, right? So, we've been living out of this trailer together for 10 months, 24 hours a day, work, sleep, drive, gym, yoga, everything, and it's really been incredible. But what we've been doing on this tour, and I do have to apologize for a bit of false advertising. Obviously, we couldn't get a permit to do a campfire in here. So, you might have heard of this as the American Campfire Freedom Tour. But even that's a bit of false advertising because it would really be more accurately described as the Kokesh Voices Probation Officer Tour. And on that count, it's actually still going very well. They can't do random home checks when you're driving around the country in an RV trailer. And someone in an interview recently asked me who was the coolest famous person that you've ever gotten to hang out with. And incidentally, the person I'm going to quote is probably the most famous person I've ever met. And he said that the coolest thing about being famous was getting to meet other famous people. And the problem with that, and it was certainly applicable in his situation, but I'm not going to say his name, is that most people in America who are famous for bullshit reasons. And what we get to do is hang out with people like you, people who care about this message, people who are waking up in all different phases of awareness all over the country right now. And of course, in doing so and talking about the message this way, we're connected to a much broader global community of people who care about freedom. But it's so much more satisfying to get to travel the country and see all of my analyses confirmed and to see like in life about what this movement is and what it's all about and where people are. And I gotta say, it's really good to be south of Washington, D.C. again, to be like out of the Northeast. Now, it's not to say that people in the Northeast don't get the message of freedom. The thing is that when most of them do, they leave. And they come to a place like this, right? So, everywhere we go, I get to ask this question, and it's a great way to see, not just for me, what's happening in the movement in the communities, but for communities to connect and in a sense to see what we have here and how people are living by these values. So the question that I always start with, that I get to ask everybody is, how do you see people living differently as a result of an awareness of the message of freedom?
More togetherness.
More togetherness, absolutely. Well, you know what, 5 years ago, you might not have been even able to put together an event like this. But absolutely, you see now there's a unique kind of community in the movement. that you have a I mean, there are different communities. It's not a monopoly on communitarianism. We're going to phrase that very carefully. But there's a unique community because you connect with people a different way, right? Okay, but daily life type stuff. What else?
Deferring gratification in the moment, so they're more willing to like work for the long term instead of just like what feels good now. Kind of like work towards a greater goal, maybe abstract.
You know, we have not had that answer yet, Professor, but thank you. No, that's actually a really good one, and I think it does speak to, you know, really what I'm trying to get at is the deeper trend of human actualization, of self-realization that comes in a way with this message. But I guess before we get any further, just one more thing as a little housekeeping caveat, because sometimes people are afraid to give all of the answers to this question. So if you're a cop, please raise your hand.
Are you looking at me?
Who said smoking weed makes you paranoid? We've never caught anybody like that. But I just want to get that out of the way and make it clear that nothing you say here tonight, I mean, unless it happened before I got here, did they check IDs and make you write down your names on the way in here? Okay, well, aside from the fact that you all have smartphones here and the NSA is doing their job right now, you will not be held accountable for anything you say here tonight, so feel free to speak freely. But first, before we get back to answering that question, I assume that most people here at least have an awareness enough, have been engaged with the movement enough to have a sense of how people wake up, right? How people come to this awareness. And the most important thing to understand about that, we're going to get into a little bit more of the how and the process later, but the most important thing to understand about this is that people don't wake up and then go back to sleep, right? And wake up asleep, being awake asleep is not the perfect, analogy, metaphor. You can't take it too far. But nobody goes, yeah, freedom, liberty. We're going to respect each other's rights. We're going to establish a voluntary society. We're going to be able to respect each other in harmony and come together in all these amazing ways. And then wakes up the next morning. Never mind, screw it. Let's just point guns at people I don't like. Right? It doesn't happen that way. So how many of you just have been around long enough to feel like viscerally that we are on the right side of history? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. All right, so along with that we see in the political, the philosophical growing of awareness, or I would rather call it anti-political, you see an undercurrent. Some would call it a cultural movement. But we know it's at a psychological level, at a community level, already even much deeper than that. But first to the practical stuff. So what else do you see people doing on a daily basis?
Not signing their children up for debt slavery by giving them a social security number, by participating in the act of going to the hospital, getting all their drugs injected into them.
Well, you guys are hardcore here.
There's a really it's something to be said.
Well, just starting with that, though, that is really the most hardcore measure of having kids off papers entirely. But you touched on a lot of stuff there, and you kind of cover that whole category. Normally, people start with the easy answer. What's the easy answer about raising kids?
Silence.
Homeschooling or unschooling, right? People are comfortable talking about that. We heard peaceful parenting, right? That was nonviolent communication with your children. Obviously, that's a huge one. But Mason, what's that?
Full sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, you started with not debt slavery. Start with the purpose, yes. Well, there's another purpose involved here in terms of the health aspect, right? And Macy and I have been talking about having kids, at least in very abstract, long-term kind of way. But we were specific enough that we were watching videos, and if you guys haven't seen it yet, there's a video on YouTube of a woman. I mean, the only way I can describe it is, there's a creek and a yoga mat, and it's basically, oh, I'm having a baby. So, if you want to see what's possible out there, bar set pretty high, ladies. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, home birthing, obviously, and I would be a little more specific in this and say it's not doing all of those specific things, but it's making all of those decisions about how to raise a child without saying, I'm just going to take the authorities' word for it, that this is how we should do things, right? So, I'm sure there's some strong feelings on vaccines here, right? So I'm going to give like the PC answer and be like, it's not medicating your children at all. It's making those decisions about whatever is appropriate based on your own judgment, right? Okay, so what else? We covered a big category there really fast.
Black and gray markets.
Was breastfeeding in public part of it? Because like that's cool too, right? I mean, well, you know, if we can go like even a step further with this about the health side, and I don't mean to. I'm sorry, there was another answer there, but there's a certain, you know, self-acceptance and acceptance of our physical reality that goes along with this. We shed ourselves of some of the psychological things that are used to manipulate us based on self-image, right? So what was the next one? Shout it out.
Black and gray markets?
Black and gray markets? Absolutely. And of course, Sam Conkin, Godfather of Rigorism, counter-economic. Oh, good. Heads nodding already. Well-read crowd. Love it. So why do you participate in black and gray markets?
I mean, for me personally, it's a sense of like, I don't know. I'm not participating in something that's immoral, first of all, you know, like.
So not
feeding into the system.
The way they would say would be not paying taxes. Because you have a responsibility to pay those taxes. That's why we call them taxes. Right, so no, I mean, that's the overriding purpose. You get all those other benefits as well, but it's really for the satisfaction, right? That you know you're not contributing. When government uses a lot of the money that you give it to hurt people, and it steals it from us, and you realize just those two things, it changes your attitude. And it takes a lot of different forms. Some of it's legal, some of it's illegal. For a lot of people, it's rearranging their lives, re-engineering their financial habits so that their tax liability is minimized. Now, this might sound crazy, but we also get as an answer to this barter, right? And it kind of, I mean, it's sometimes a separate answer you could say, but also, technically, anytime you barter anything over $20 and you don't report it to the IRS, you're now in a black or gray market, you know, right? So, now there's a book, 3 felonies a day, because that's how many the average American commits. I mean, it's insane. But working under the table for cash, working off the record, working for Bitcoin, working in barter for... I kind of gave away one of the next ones here, related ones. Feel free to shout it out, though. If you're not using the U.S. dollar, you might be using Bitcoin or
Crypto,
gold or silver or other alternative currencies like hour-based currency, right? So avoiding the inflation tax again goes hand in hand with that. What else? A couple big ones we haven't really touched on yet. Well, self-ownership kind of touches all of them, but yeah, you assert that, right? What forms does that take for you?
In terms of me, if you pay in the taxation at all, you don't own your labor. You don't own your labor, you don't own your time.
Okay, so we covered tax evasion, though. I mean, not paying taxes. We don't evade taxes, right? That's a legal term. We don't do that.
Maybe not like falling for false flags.
Okay, so not falling for false flags, rejecting manipulative propaganda, right?
Narrative.
All right, so what goes along with that? I mean, that's like how you consume your news, right?
Alternative media growing.
Right.
Growing rapidly. Yeah.
So I might sum that up as being a conscientious consumer of information in general, in all forms. Right? You know, for me, there's a big process even recently of going from, I'm just going to consume less. And, you know, Thomas Jefferson, he who reads newspapers is less well-informed than someone who reads nothing at all. Well, I mean, I feel like this has been a great contradiction in our movement. We want government to have as small a role in your life as possible, but we want to talk about it all the time. Right? And I used to expect people to listen to a 3-hour daily podcast. Now, you know, I'm on social media, I check in every now and then, you know, I read Drudge Report twice a day, check in on the headlines, and it's much more efficient. I feel like I'm I'm able to get my overview of current events and in a much more efficient way, rather than being, having your head in that and sitting down to watch an hour nightly newscast and get the whole spun version, as opposed to like when you control it that way. I mean, just by the push-pull version of the internet versus, pull versus the push of broadcast, it changes the way you engage with that information and encourages skepticism. Okay, a couple other big ones we're still totally missing here.
Free thinkers.
Thinking for yourself, absolutely, but manifestations, daily life kind of stuff. Avoiding the police, and that's a big one, definitely an important one. How we interact with authority figures, like when you assert your self-ownership, knowing your rights, obviously, you talk to cops differently. Eating organic. What else related to that?
Growing your own food.
Thank you, that's what we were waiting for. Growing your own food.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys can't tell me you haven't noticed that around here at all, right?
Not at all.
I mean, of all places, people are in taking charge of their health and their diet, saying, no, I'm going to eat exactly what I want to eat, and if it doesn't exist in my backyard, well, I'm going to make it, right? But there's some stuff that goes along with that, right? I mean, what else? Taking charge of your own health.
Self-defense, like, maybe arming yourself.
Absolutely.
Maybe, my friends in the MMA, that kind of thing.
I'm glad you started it that way, because it's not about guns, it's about taking charge of your own self-defense, your own security. When you know that the cops, usually, calling the cops usually isn't in the best interest of your personal health and safety, right? So, I don't know, what's open carry laws around here? Yeah? See people open, not in an alcohol serving establishment, concealed carry with permits?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Carry your car.
Carry the car. But, even for people who are like, you know what, I don't need to carry lethal force, but, I'm going to take charge, I'm going to have pepper spray or a taser, or maybe I'm a convicted felon, I don't know, something like that. Okay, there's, we could keep going on this like all night, obviously, but there's one other big area that we haven't touched on at all that we really need to mention here. What was that? Ending the drug war? With every hit, what? Ending the drug war. What is that? Is that like a nice way of saying, fucking libertarians like their pot? Goddamn stoners. Is that what you were trying to say? Something like that? Okay.
Freedom.
We heard it mentioned a little bit here earlier.
Disobedience?
So, well, hold on. I want to get onto this now for a minute, because drugs, right?
Freedom.
Well, we all know why marijuana is illegal, right? It's a gateway drug. Well, actually, in a very serious way, it is. It's a gateway to freedom. Because you cannot smoke pot and not realize that the government's totally full of shit. And that's a gateway to a lot of things. And some of those other things are also other drugs. But the thing about weed, when it was being, we know the story, paper industry, right? William Randolph Hearst, going back almost 100 years, I don't care to know the history that well. To all the other interests now, the pharmaceutical industry, law enforcement, prison industrial complex, the judicial system, so on and so forth. Everybody who's got some interest in marijuana being kept illegal. But you know what? It's really, it's nice to know that marijuana was just legalized here. No. You're just not allowed to carry more than you can put in your mouth at one time, right? So, look at where we are historically right now. Should I give people more time for those? I mean, if you're too stoned to get that within 10 seconds, you should have gotten it right away. But when it was, look at where we are right now. And it's cool to see this following the national news. When you know the significance of the war on drugs in terms of its scope of the government racket, what it touches, how much how much in resources it dominates. You've got the banking racket at the top, military-industrial complex, welfare system, education, drug war. I mean, maybe there's a couple other ones you want to say in contention, but it's like it's right up there with all of those big ones, with all of these interests tied into it. Law enforcement especially, like all over the country, the pervasiveness is unreal. And what we see now is the inevitability of the end of marijuana prohibition. And you see it like a chunk of an iceberg, you know? And it's like, there's a crack forming and it's shifting and it's just like you can tell, okay, now it's gone. Now it's just a matter of time now before it falls into the ocean of freedom. We are at the end of the beginning of the end of the war on drugs. What a beautiful thing to celebrate, to step back and appreciate. And when you know how much marijuana is the underpinning of that, the bulk of that, you see even just weed legalization, wow, really big deal, because the rest follows pretty fast. But you remember from, you know, when California was debating it, it was like all the medical stuff, glaucoma was the big thing, like, oh yeah, dude, it's for my glaucoma. Am I dating myself with that one? Like, because I'm a California kid here? Anyway. The thing is with glaucoma, it's not like getting high makes the pain more endurable. It's that there's an actual pressure on the cornea that is, I mean, can you imagine this? Incredibly painful, and smoking weed reduces the pressure. And now you have, like, every day you turn around and see like it cures some other thing. And yet there are still people working to keep it illegal, working to keep medical marijuana away from people. And you see how it cures seizure kids. Like, I mean, I didn't know this until I heard about the cure, but there are like kids who are born into living hell who have seizures all day long. Not even something that gets them high, but the CBD out of it cures that. And I gotta say, if you know this, and you're one of the thousands of legislators in America still working to keep it illegal, there's a special place in hell, I swear. That's not, you know, not a lot I'm gonna say about hell, but if you keep seizure medicine from kids and you keep them in that living hell. But if they keep weed illegal, now for me, when I went to the VA and told them I was having trouble sleeping, they gave me 5 prescriptions, 3 of which had suicide listed as a side effect. And I was like, no thanks. And I ran a peer support group for vets with PTSD, and we saw that the ones who smoked pot were able to control their symptoms at least and get the talk therapy they needed to get a handle on what they were experiencing. But the guys who did the status drugs and, you know, everything that the VA handed them and then drank themselves into bottles would destroy their lives. And you think about the economics of that with the pharmaceutical industry, that's one thing. But if they make weed illegal, you got to think, like, what do they make really, really illegal? All the really good drugs, right? Anybody?
DMT.
Yeah. Psilocybin, mushrooms, acid. For those of you who haven't seen them on my YouTube channel, I recorded my first 6 DMT experiences. I don't know how the hell that really happened. Hey, you got your video camera? Yeah? You want to smoke some DMT for your YouTube channel? Well, if you can get it to me before I can think of all the reasons this is a terrible idea, sure. Yeah, and they were great videos, very popular. And introduced a lot of people to some mind expansion. But before we get to that, Molly, MDMA, right, originally developed as a therapy drug for couples in the 80s. Until people are having fun with this stuff, we have to make it illegal. It's for the kids. They want you to think that's the narrative, right? They want you to think, oh yeah, well there's a safety issue. Well, you know, if you buy into the idea of is this good for you or not. And by the way, it's really cool to see how the conversation shifted around this now. People look around with marijuana, not like it was in California a couple decades ago, but now people are saying, why should pot be legal? It's not because it's safer than alcohol. It's because I get to decide what I put in my own body. Like even people who don't get the whole message of freedom at least are starting to get that. And I think younger people are getting that in a very beautiful way. But Molly, 2 hits, 2 weeks apart, in 2 sessions with a licensed therapist, cures PTSD and clinical symptoms for most of the people who are suffering from that. Right now, 2 hits of MDMA online on the Silk Road, or, well, I wouldn't know anything about that. 10, 20 bucks are on the street, right? If that stuff was manufactured legally, it would cost more to package it and to deliver it than to make it. You compare that to a lifetime on Prozac and prescriptions and therapy, gee, wouldn't want to give up that cash cow, right? But there's something even. Well, we're gonna have a little bit of an interactive or a little exercise here. If you guys are all willing to play ball with me for some and have a little fun with this, okay? We mentioned acid earlier. I want you all to reach under your chairs. Okay, you get a tab, you get a tab, you get a tab.
Party, Oprah.
Sorry, that party's tomorrow. So, would you all like to feel a little bit more free in about 10 seconds? 10 seconds, all right. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and consider for just a moment that everything is right in the universe. And take a deep exhale and slowly open your eyes. Now, if you didn't see what we did there, you'll understand it in about 20 minutes. All right, so bear with me now. Acid, mushrooms, DMT, psychedelics, things that turn your brain inside out, can sometimes chemically induce a sense of that feeling. But it's not about the drugs, it's about the awareness. But for people that can't find it naturally, oftentimes those drugs, which are extremely therapeutic, are the only way that they can break through and get that kind of awareness. But we can get it, and sometimes we get this as an answer to the question, meditation. Notice, if you guys notice, people who have an awareness of the message of freedom and all the ways of taking charge of their lives and their health, at least for some of us, meditation is a regular practice. It seems slightly, at least, so I'd say significantly, at least more common than in the general population. How about yoga? Any regular yoga practitioners here? Yeah, see? How about that? Nature. Now, most of you don't know. Yeah, being in touch with nature. For me, I used to run barefoot. That was a big meditation for me. But for most people who, if you've never done yoga, you might not know, it was originally developed as a warm-up for meditation. Any good 90-minute session ends with 5 to 15 minutes of relaxed meditation where you're in that state of connectedness with your body and get to appreciate that state of being, and it's incredibly valuable for getting the sense of centeredness and what goes with that in terms of self-acceptance. But if you've never done yoga, I know this is tough in a male-dominated movement, right? If you've never done yoga, you owe it to yourself to try it at least 2 or 3 times. And I say that because there's a whole range of experiences you can have in yoga, from a very calm, relaxing, stretching, meditative session to a 90-minute Bikram hot yoga that will kick your ass harder than 90 minutes of military calisthenics. I'll drink an entire gallon of water over 90 minutes and be spent. Like, I can't do it in the morning. Like, that's how intense it is. I'm like wasted for the rest of the day. So for the guys here, if you haven't tried yoga yet, and you're a little bit apprehensive about being judged by other guys in the movement, I got 2 words for you. All that goes away. Yoga pants. They are so comfortable. So try it and know why you're doing it, more importantly. But when I was in Fallujah in 2004, there was a certain state of Zen engagement that I enjoyed while I was there, feeling like I was there for a righteous cause, feeling like all of my talents were being applied, that I was really engaged in a beautiful challenge. And I was the guy who always woke up early to sing songs and tell jokes and stories to the guys on my teams. We were all getting ready to get everybody in a good mood. And when I was in jail in D.C. in solitary confinement a couple years ago, I found myself in the same state. And I was so happy. And I was like, I just loved my, well, we refer to it as my government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat in a beautifully manicured, gated community with 24-hour security, extremely attentive staff, lots of hands-on treatment, and when you're the guy who can record podcasts over the jail phone, the guards who wear name tags at least tend to listen to you pretty well. So this is always a fun question to ask at these events. How many of you have been to jail before? Overnights count. Yeah. Didn't say that one earlier, did you? was that implied maybe in some of the answers we heard before? So every chance I got, you know what it means then to be a ward of the state, where they kind of have to pay attention to you, right? All right. The rest of you have seen Orange is the New Black, at least a couple episodes. Okay, cool. So every chance I got with a guard, hey, excuse me, sir, can I talk to you for a minute? I need to tell you something important. So they come up to my little window slit in the cell door, and I would say, "You're a free, beautiful, independent human being. You should never let anyone tell you otherwise. Have a nice day." And it's those of you who have been to jail who are laughing at that, right? Because you know what the guard's thinking. Oh, the hell is this guy on the inside of the cage happier than I am on the outside? Right? Well, maybe it's because you dress up in a silly costume every day, you work a 9 to 5 as a cog in the machine for a boss who doesn't give a damn about you. Whereas I'm working for people here for a greater cause that has a lot more love behind it. And what I got out of that was something that is really so fundamental to the human experience that it should be obvious, but we can't remind ourselves enough because we seem to live ignorant of this, and we push this out of our consciousness, but it's really simple that you, as a free, beautiful, independent human being, have the power to choose your mood, your attitude, your outlook, your demeanor at all times. Every bad day is self-imposed. You're going to have emotional reactions, sure, and we should celebrate the rich diversity of those, but how we choose to live, what we choose to do with those, is something that a free person who's free here gets to take responsibility for, gets to enjoy the choice then of how to engage on a daily basis. Do you see how this changes your attitude towards activism? To have this kind of emotional freedom? I mean, you see a lot of people who talk about we'll be happy when we're free, or if we could just get rid of this government thing, finally, then we could all be happy. Like, I'm sorry, but if you don't know how to be happy now, what's the point of being free? And we've been fooled into thinking life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? As if happiness is something that you can chase down and beat over the head with a club and drag home to your cave to enjoy forever and ever. And it's not true. Even in those hallowed words, do we have a misleading understanding of happiness and freedom? And the truth is that happiness causes freedom. Freedom here is more important than freedom in any external physical sense. Now, in the course of waking up, we're all brought down a little bit, right? Nobody goes, gee, the world's more screwed up than I ever imagined possible. Yay! So how many of you in the course of paying attention have felt angry at some point? Yeah? Good. How many of you, in maybe looking at the fact that you're more than 50 times likely to be killed by a cop than by a terrorist, have felt some sort, or that maybe your neighbor will steal from you, but the IRS definitely will? How many of you have felt some form of fear in studying government or paying attention to the nature of power in the world? Some of you are too afraid to raise your hands. That's okay. And looking back at the scope of the suffering of statism over the millennia, over the course of human history, of war, of all the opportunities squandered, of lives ruined, how many of you have felt some form of sadness or depression, right? So what do we do with this awareness? We go out on the street corner with our signs and our bullhorns, and we scream, now join me in my fear and my anger and my depression. Somebody's been that guy. And what's the response that you get? Screw you! I'm going back to watching Dancing with the Stars and being a happy little wage slave, right? Why would I want any of your truth if it brings you down? And we've also been suckered into thinking of this as a political movement. And if politics is a conversation of who we point the guns of government at to organize society, and our premise from the beginning is, no! This isn't a political movement, it's an anti-political movement, it's a morals movement, an ethics movement, a philosophy movement. And when you succumb to that temptation, you know, I'm gonna put on a suit and tie and comb my hair and tell everybody I'm a good little wage slave, you're gonna end up like Sisyphus rolling that rock up the hill over and over and over again. You wanna do that, you keep winning votes, keep winning petition signatures, keep winning arguments, keep winning debates. Keep winning those Facebook flame wars. Yeah! That's how we're going to end the state. You all know the guy that was converted by being yelled at a bar, right? Yeah, me neither. But when you go to someone with, hey, I've got this philosophy, I've got this perspective that, you know, by the way, could solve like most of the problems the world is facing, but also has made me freer and happier, would you like to hear about that? You don't get, well, I don't know, be free and happy? Who's going to build the roads? And the answer is, I don't know. I mean, I could give you all my speculation about insurance companies and car companies and developers and blah, 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 but no, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that nonviolence is better than violence and coercion. Can we figure out how that works to meet all of your potential concerns about this? I don't have all the answers. So, we talk about the negative impact of government propaganda very comfortably and openly, right? That there's a conditioning going on. That we want, you know, that they want us to be afraid, right? Especially of each other or of outsiders. You know, they want us to be dependent, right? To see government as this all necessary parental figure. But we don't talk enough about what it would mean to be impervious to that kind of external manipulation. Now, there's one other thing that we sometimes get as an answer to this, and I think maybe it was touched on. Any students of nonviolent communication here? Yeah, always great to see a few hands for that. Only one other book I'll recommend on par with my own, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Will change every one of your relationships. And a lot of libertarians, when they hear this, they go, communication? Of course it's nonviolent. Fuck you. Yeah, that's the problem, right? And of course you have to accept a slightly different definition of the word, or the meaning of the word violent in this context. But we should all be interested in maximizing the value of our communications, of our relationships, of our exchanges, to maximize the value for everyone involved, right? And be open to see what techniques can do that. And nonviolent communication is a very important way of doing it. And what it means, or one of the techniques is getting down to what people are really feeling and needing, and clearing all of the emotional manipulation, all of the garbage, and all of the, you know, that propaganda that we commit even to ourselves in our internal dialogue out of the conversation. And you see how when someone gets this, that it as an activist, it really changes your attitude, right? Because when you can smile and be happy, maybe literally with a boot heel on your neck, and look up at that guy, there's no more hatred, there's no anger, there's no contempt, no animosity at all. If anything, it's empathy, right? I mean, do you think that the cop who beats up protesters for a living is a well-adjusted human being who goes home to a happy, loving household every night? No. Or the politicians lying through their teeth, like they know what they're doing, right? How about the bankers? I think it was George Carlin said, trying to make yourself happy with money is like trying to satisfy your hunger by duct taping sandwiches to your body. The people who really need this message are the most miserable and least free in their minds, the victimizers. And it's tough to really accept that it's worse to be a victimizer than a victim. And the kind of power that we have with this message to wake people up, to share this, is something so beautiful. So I'm going to take a minute now for a commercial break for the book, to open a box here. I started writing this while I was in jail, and I wrote it to be the fastest way to take someone from zero to I get it. By the way, I'm sorry, you can't buy any of these here tonight because they're free. Freedom is free! So, I was able, while I was in jail, to do a survey of the literature of our movement, both in my head and from all the amazing books that people sent me while I was in jail. By the way, this book is now banned in U.S. prisons and jails. We got an endorsement letter from the Department of Justice recently. And you might think, what's the big deal, Adam? It's just jail. Well, there are over 2 million Americans in U.S. jails. And it's the only place where Americans still have time to read books. And they do. And every time we've gotten one into jail, it gets passed around very enthusiastically from everything that we've heard so far. Yeah, they said that it was the entire publication was a threat to the good order, security, and discipline of the institution. I was like, yeah, it doesn't get any better than that. And so I was able to go back to, Socrates, Plato, Locke, Smith, Spooner, Bastiat, Mises, Hayek, Rand, Rothbard, Konkin, Dr. Paulus Sr., Woods, Molyneux, and see all the ways that people that try to convey this message as directly and efficiently as possible, and realized that this hadn't been written yet. And I wrote this to be the ultimate conversion tool. So the challenge that I've been issuing to people here, obviously this is in line with all the principles that we've been talking about of nonviolent communication, no opinion, no projection, no wishful thinking. It's just a straightforward statement of facts, no unnecessary labels or judgment. And the challenge I've been issuing to people on this tour is to read the book. That's not supposed to be the challenge, I know. It's 2015, you gotta twist people's arm to get them to read a book, I get it. But the advantage of this is you can listen to an audiobook and tell people that you read it. So the entire thing is summed up here in the first chapter, the first 9 pages. And it's short, it's just 100 pages. It's free in every digital format possible as well, PDF, e-reader, Kindle, everything, audiobook even. But the challenge is to decide for yourself whether or not this is the most effective way for you to share the beauty and power of this message with someone else. And if not, find out what it is for yourself and do that. Because I guarantee you that is the activism that you will find the most satisfying. So, if I'm going to put everybody on the spot here again. How many of you can honestly say that everyone in your immediate family who you're in regular contact with understands at least why you care about freedom? Typical show of hands so far from what we've had. There's no reason, right? Even if you didn't have this tool available, to be able to go to someone and say, Mom, Dad, brother, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle, I can keep going, right? I love you, you love me, I care about you. I appreciate if you would just take the time, maybe 15 minutes even, to understand something that's important to me. And if there's something you want me to read or whatever, or to do, like, I'm happy to do that. But I've got this book, I grabbed it for you. There's first 9 pages. If you could just read the first 9 pages and we could talk about it. Or 15 minutes of the audiobook. We'll listen to it on the way to school and, just let me know what you think. And if they say no to that, no, I don't know, next month I can't spare 15 minutes to care about, sir, to consider something that you care about, you should probably reconsider those relationships. But if you can make it that easy, anybody can get this. We don't have to win arguments. We don't have to win debates. I mean, like the people who invented oral hygiene, do you think they had to argue with people? They just had to smile. Oh, is it too late for corny shit like that? Do you want to keep your teeth? Like, do you want to be free? Do you want all of these benefits of a non-violent society? Like, do you want to be happier right now? Do you want to respect your own free will? And this is the deeper trend that we see, right? A lot of us, I mean, it's scary when you wake up to this and you don't know where it's going. And a lot of people stay stuck in that fear and that anger and depression phase, right? And they get burned out as activists pretty quick. But a lot of people in particular stay stuck on that fear one. And you get a sense from some of the people who have this message, who say things like, if we don't storm the barricades with our pitchforks now, it's 1,000 years of tyranny and darkness. By the way, buy my water filter. Bible seats. That's a lot of people, though. And if they're trying to get you to be afraid, they don't want you to be free. Like, I don't care if you've got your 40 acres and you got a house that you built yourself and you're all off grid. If you spend all day staring at your computer screen being angry, you're not free. They win, you lose, end of story. You have given up that most important sovereignty of your mind. And we are in a position right now to share that with people. Now, this is also something we started doing recently. It's a lot of fun. How many of you, well, we have some fans of Konkin here. People who have read Konkin, right? Godfather of agorism. He used to say there are two definitions of libertarian. One, anyone who calls himself a libertarian. Yeah, you guys see a problem with that, right? Bill Maher, Glenn Beck. Oh, wait. Glenn Beck, Bill Maher. New rule, Bill. You can't give $1 million to the Obama campaign and tell me it's because you believe in freedom. Second definition. Anyone who agrees with me on absolutely everything. Some of you have been that guy too, huh? It's okay, we can't be right about everything all the time. That's my job. You're welcome, you don't have to worry about that anymore. So I like to talk about the broader freedom movement of humanity, of course, but there's a core to this movement of people who are conscientiously engaged in moving humanity forward this way. So the definition that I'd like to propose is people who can articulate freedom as a principle and at least attempt to apply it consistently. So the question then is, how many of us are there? First in America, what do you think in America? 1% would be 3.2 million or so.
Maybe 100,000.